Preparation for a voyage using the medicine plant ayahuasca is not all about diet, although it is an important factor. Preparation is also about research, gaining a certain degree of knowledge and a willingness to understand what you are about to participate in. Firstly, studying before and after a voyage is part of the preparation for voyaging. Secondly, knowledge or understanding of the location of where you are physically going to voyage. Thirdly, who is guiding or facilitating your voyage. Fourthly, diet, what to eat and what to drink and what to avoid. Fifth, physical and mental health, the use of pharmaceutical or prescription drugs. Sixth, spiritual preparation and intentions. Seventh, set and setting. Eighth, egoic mind resistance. Ninth, the cult of guruism. Study. When you hear from people who participated in ayahuasca journey, voyage or experience, although they can be ecstatic about their experience and may tell you it was life-changing, they are often confused or cannot put their experience into simple terms or words to explain what has happened to them. In other words, because they have no context for their experience in any way, shape or form. Words to describe what has gone on with them are not always within their vocabulary or ability to explain. An ability to explain to a certain extent an experience of this sort can be greatly enhanced by reading this text and by studying other relevant materials for as long as possible before you voyage, and then to continue your studies afterwards, of course. Your studies could include such things as books, videos, music, audio recordings, discussions, interviews, and/or films, which are my personal favourite. In relation to making further recommendations to particular materials beyond this text, to read, listen, watch, or study, we make none. We would, however, suggest that you read this text with a view to taking notes, underlining or highlighting words and/or phrases, and doing your own independent research. Location, location, location. Gain knowledge or understanding of the location where you are physically going to voyage. Perhaps this is one area where you should only take recommendations from trusted friends, family, colleagues, or even neighbours. Perhaps before venturing as a tourist into the wilds of any jungle or any location, try to experience voyaging ayahuasca closer to home first. Wherever you go for your first voyage or any experience, it should be taken as a given that you have spoken to someone who has been there before, and not just taken your reference or recommendation from some anonymous internet source. For a very first experience, consider bringing an appropriate friend along on this adventure, even if they are not interested in voyaging with ayahuasca. Mind you, this didn't work for me, as my friends and family at the time were not remotely interested in experiencing anything like this. Some have since changed their minds, and some have since participated in an ayahuasca ceremony or two. Guess they just needed a willing guinea pig to test the waters. Plan out your trip in as much detail as possible, and check in with friends and family en route to your destination when you get there, while you are there, and when you are leaving, so they know when to expect you home. That's if you decide to come back, of course, but either way, let them know. Know what you are taking. In its most traditional setting, ayahuasca contains two key ingredients. The first ingredient being the ayahuasca vine itself, also known as Banisteriopsis caapi, which acts as an MAO inhibitor. MAOIs, or monoamine oxidase inhibitors, inhibit the body's natural enzymes from breaking down DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which provide the psychedelic experience or voyage. DMT is also referred to as the spirit molecule. It occurs naturally in many plants and animals, including humans. The human body itself also creates and carries DMT as a natural biological process. The second ingredient is the leaf of the chacruna plant, which contains the majority of the DMT. Both the ayahuasca vine and the chacruna plant have very positive therapeutic and healthy effects on the human psyche and physical body. In making this brew, both ingredients are boiled and reduced down several times to a thick soup over many hours, then mixed together and left to cool. You end up with a greeny brown coloured substance. It has the constituency of stagnant, muddy swamp water. Most people say it tastes quite foul and putrid, and they are entitled to their opinion, of course. The ayahuasca vine and chacruna plant are not native species to Europe. There are a few analogies, equivalents that can act as replacements for both the chacruna plant and the ayahuasca vine. After all, what one is looking for is a plant with relatively high levels of DMT and a plant that acts as an MAO inhibitor. One such analogy can also be made from Syrian rue, which acts as an MAO inhibitor, and Mimosa hostilis contains DMT. And there are many other combinations and mixtures out there that do a similar job, more or less. If possible, find out what is in the mixture you may be taking and research its constituent parts for yourself. The plants mentioned above, i.e. the ayahuasca vine, chacruna, Syrian rue, mimosa, among many other plant medicines, all contain many congruent constituents which work in harmony and exceedingly well with the human body in promoting physical, emotional, mental health and well-being within and without. What is chemically contained in these plants is well worth researching for your own education. Then you will begin to wonder why so many states, governments and authoritarians have banned and illegalized so many of these medicine plants. You can come to your own conclusions about this. Ayahuasca is also called copy, vine of the soul, vine of the dead, and yeg. Imbibing it can cause vomiting or diarrhea or both, but not usually at the same time. But this does not happen with everyone. It can cause perspiration and can lower your heart rate and make you dizzy, so it is best not to be driving or operating heavy machinery when or if you partake. It can also cause you to have all sorts of psychological and/or spiritual experiences, which we will get into a little later. Ayahuasca's short-term effects on the body range from feelings of calmness and tranquility, and it can act as a central nervous stimulant to increase sensitivity in all your senses, such as smell, hearing, sight and touch, and your sensory perception. Its medium to long-term effects on the physical body can be as follows. It is an anthelmintic, which causes parasites and worms to be stunned, killed and expelled from the body without causing harm to the body. It is an anesthetic, which can reduce pain and your sensitivity to pain. It acts as an antibacterial agent within the body, which might explain why some people may purge or vomit when it's used. It has anti-malarial properties. It acts as an agent against sleep sickness and light sensitivity. It is also toxic to certain types of other chronic illnesses or diseases and does not react well with pharmaceutical and/or recreational drugs. In particular, it is dangerous to combine selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors and MAO inhibitors, and doing so may result in what is called a hypertensive crisis. Ayahuasca is non-addictive, but should be taken with a certain degree of caution, with a certain mindset and in a certain trusted setting. It does not produce withdrawal symptoms. On the face of this information, which has come from a state/government source, it reads like ayahuasca has the appearance on paper of a miracle drug per se. But because it contains DMT, it is classified by the state as a Schedule 1 substance. This means it is considered by the state of Ireland to have no medical scientific value. It is regarded as a substance that is likely to be abused, and therefore it is classified as illegal, unlike, say, cigarettes and/or alcohol. Side note, the key constituent here is not necessarily the plant or plants that contain high levels of DMT. My view is that the MAO inhibitor is the more significant ingredient, as this suppresses the body's enzymes that break down DMT. It has shown after taking an MAO inhibitor you can also voyage for extended periods on hallucinogenic mushrooms or truffles, but all MAO inhibitors should be taken with extreme caution, as they can cause otherwise harmless foods to become toxic to the body. Thus, fasting for 1, 2, or 3 days before imbibing significantly reduces risk of toxicity. As far as the other medicine plants mentioned above are concerned, you can research these in your own time. Suffice to say that without exception, on balance, they all have positive properties and many health benefits in their own right. Conspiracy theories or facts aside, from reading and studying the information above, the state's consideration and definitions as to what is defined as illegal makes no logical sense and is ethically and morally questionable. The science does not support the decision to classify ayahuasca as a Schedule I substance. It makes such a decision highly questionable, to say the least, especially in the context of the law. In my view, this legal definition would not stand up to a robust, lawful argument. Then again, who's going to make such an argument? Know your shaman, druid, facilitator, or guide. If you are not going to South America to experience ayahuasca, then you are probably not going to meet a real shaman. Shaman is a generic term, which is broadly applied to a man or woman who administer and or use medicine plants, amongst other things. The proper term, and one that is more commonly used amongst the people of the Amazon/South America, is ayahuascas, and not shaman. The term shaman was first applied by Western anthropologists to the ancient religious tradition of Turks and Mongols, and then applied broadly to other ethnic groups. It was then applied broadly to other ethnic groups all over the planet to encompass what they perceived to be similar practices. The term shamanism is thought to have been first introduced to the West after Russian forces conquered the shamanistic Khanate of Kazan in 1552. The term shaman in its original tongue is understood to mean one who knows. Let's stick to this idea of the shaman as being the one who knows. Similarly, the Druids of ancient Western Europe were imbued with the same concept of seeing or knowing, being wise or sage. They would pass on their knowledge via an oral as opposed to a written tradition. The main tenet of their teachings was to imbibe their scholars and students with a firm understanding of the indestructibility of the soul, which in turn robbed death of all its terror, from which the highest forms of courage can be developed. Obviously, there is much more to shamans and or druids, but suffice to say, historically speaking, shamans and druids posed a great threat to organized religion and states, and arguably still do, in that these sages and teachers could not be frightened or controlled, as they did not fear death. Moreover, they taught others the same principle. They had the facility to guide people to experience this knowledge for themselves through the use of medicine plants, amongst other things. Shamans or druids would not seek to provide you with a medicine plant to heal unless they had already used it themselves and understood what it could do to, with, or for you. This is unlike modern medical doctors who have no interest in, perhaps even no concept of treatment to cure per se. A shaman or druid's task, on the other hand, was to seek to drive out disease and provide healing, remedy, or cure. Strictly speaking, it was and is not an automatic tradition amongst most indigenous cultures for anyone other than the medicine man, the druid, or the shaman to use or take medicine plants. The shaman first took the medicine, and then, if it was approved, the shaman offered the medicine to the man or woman who was specifically mentally or physically ill. If it was necessary, in effecting a cure for them only, and or to provide them with the appropriate insight. The shaman first took the medicine, and then, if it was appropriate, the shaman offered the medicine to the man or woman who was spiritually, mentally, or physically ill, if it was necessary in effecting a cure for them only, and or to provide them with the appropriate insight. In stark contrast, modern medicine practitioners or doctors do not, in the main, take or use the prescriptions or medicines they prescribe. The medicines they prescribe have many negative and destructive effects on the human body. They call these effects side effects. A genuine shaman or druid has not only taken his own medicine plants, but has also lived with them as part of his or her training. Living with and taking your own medicine. Perish the thought, as my granny used to say. A true and proper shaman or druid was and is not only and specifically interested in the administration or imbibing of entheogens or medicine plants, but will, where appropriate and where required, administer over and prescribe treatments concerning diet and fasting, isolation or solitude, music, meditation, chanting, drumming, shaking and vibration, darkness and light, and cleansing with earth, water, fire, herbs, plants, etc. Whilst some shamans or medicine plant facilitators may seem aloof, you should make an effort to speak to them, either before you travel to your chosen destination or upon arrival. And most certainly before you make a final decision to imbibe or take any medicine plant offered, as taking or imbibing a medicine plant may not be the best initial treatment for you to begin with. Trust your own gut or instinct about them. If the relative shaman or facilitator is totally inaccessible, then think twice about traveling. And most certainly think thrice about taking or using any proposed medicine plants. A genuine shaman or facilitator is genuinely concerned with and interested in you, and why and what you are seeking to achieve in partaking in a medical plant ceremony, your intention. They should be more than willing to communicate with you, albeit sometimes through or via a translator. Not to put too fine a point on it, you no longer have to travel to South America or the Amazon to genuinely experience medicine plants. Or for that matter to take Mother Ayahuasca, as it is now available all over the planet. A medicine plant tourist industry of sorts has evolved. In all parts of the world, you can just as easily get ripped off in Europe, North America or Africa as you can in South America or the Amazon. In the most traditional settings, the shaman, medicine man or druid was only ever interested in guiding or helping you to heal without taking a monetary payment. He/she was only there to administer exclusively to the well-being of the tribe per se, who in return took care of his or her basic living needs. It was, and in some tribes still is, a vocation and is looked down upon for the shaman to take payments to the point where they were and can be expelled from the tribe. Accept it. You are a tourist of sorts, so a price to participate you will need to pay. Having said this, there are still reliable people out there who can guide you on where to go. And how much to pay to participate in a sacred medicine plant ceremony? This is research you must do for yourself, once again. This text is not to recommend any particular people or groups. This is for you to figure out in your own time of your own volition. Diet. The dieta, as it's termed, is not for the purpose of controlling or losing weight, either for ego or vanity. The idea is to cleanse the physical, emotional, mental and or spiritual body of potential contaminants, and to rid the mind of worldly attachments and addictions such as certain foods, meats, nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, and drugs, be they recreational or medically prescribed. More a body and mind cleanse of detoxification than diet. The more time you take to cleanse and prepare your body, the more profound and deeper the experience with medicine plants is supposed to be, which may also reduce the possibility of your body rejecting the medicine plant. They say that Mother Ayahuasca can be jealous and may purge or expel any perceived contaminants out of your body, and equally, when or if you are cleansed, she will work with you to guide and direct you towards the necessary healing beyond the ceremony. Note, it is not required for you to completely starve yourself, but it is recommended you eat vegetable soups and avoid any solid food for a period of 3 to 5 days. One thing that you may also find useful to make in small doses is a half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda mixed with the juice of a quarter of a lemon in a half glass of water per day. The lemon juice activates the bicarbonate and dilutes the water. This makes the mixture more palatable. For me, this mixture taken once every couple of days tends to settle my stomach, give me a little wind, and clears me out at the rear end if required. The bicarbonate for me is like a mini detox. Some say that this mixture is also a cure for a hangover. Equally, having been on a vegetarian diet for approximately 5 years now has also possibly had the effect of ridding my body of a certain amount of toxins and chemicals that are used in the farming process and manufacture of meats and meat products such as beef, lamb, pork, bacon, chicken and fish, amongst others. On another note, perhaps one other thing to consider using independently of any of these preparations for a voyage is taking a dose of iodine every once in a while. With the proliferation of processed foods and the reduced availability and cost of organic, wild and other natural foods, most people in the West are simply not getting enough iodine-rich foods in their diets, which of course has all sorts of negative impacts upon the thyroid and your physical health and well-being. You can further research this topic for yourself. Finally, on this theme of diet, using bicarbonate, lemon, and particularly iodine in relative doses to my needs has worked very well in maintaining the healthy function of my thyroid. 12 or so years ago, it was recommended by a medical doctor/practitioner for me to go on and use medically prescribed drugs, steroids in particular, for a thyroid problem. After the doctor, informed me that steroids would be required for the rest of my life in one form or another, and they would also have a massive potentially negative impact upon my body. His statement simply ended our relationship. You could say, by not taking the doctor's advice and not using the recommended drugs, was taking my life into my own hands. But whose hands should my life be in if not mine? Your physical and mental health and the use of pharmaceutical or prescription drugs. It is suggested that you consult your doctor, physician and/or psychiatrist before using or taking any medical plant, and specifically if you are using pharmaceutical or medically prescribed drugs. The idea being that many medicine plants do not react well to the majority of pharmaceutical and/or prescriptive drugs, and many make you sick or give you a negative reaction or even a potential fatal reaction. You don't want a little death to turn out to be your final one.